The information provided is not a substitute for legal and other professional advice where the facts and circumstances warrant. People should always consult their own legal or other professional advisors and discuss the facts and circumstances that apply to their specific circumstances. The information shared on Ask the Landlord is for educational purposes only.
Hi everyone, and we're back with another episode of Ask the Landlord with our favorite landlord, Albert Dweck. I'm Melissa, I'm one of Albert's producers and a former New York City, Pittsburgh, Lafayette, Louisiana, Washington, D.C. renter. And together, we're going to be asking this landlord some questions. If you have a question for Albert and you want to ask him on this podcast, leave us a voicemail on the Ask the Landlord hotline. That number is 646-580-3015. Or slide into Albert's DMs at Ask the Landlord on Instagram and ask him a question there. He'll be sure to answer, or we'll answer on the podcast. All right, Albert, here's my question for today. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready. Go.
All right, this happened to me many, many times in different cities, but I'm a first-time renter. What are the first things I should do when I move in or before?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's a long list of things. And I think first the thing is you want to acknowledge the condition of the apartment the way it is or the way it's expected or you expected it under your lease. So, when I moved into an apartment recently, there were scratches on the floor, right? And I was like, I didn't do this. I mean, so I make sure to document and tell the landlord, say, listen, this was here. I didn't cause this, and I don't want to be responsible for it on the move out, right? So before I get all my stuff in there and make a mess, I want you to know that this is here. This is a situation. So things like that, which may be acceptable to you, and the landlord may not be able to do anything about, and tell you, look, that's how it is, and say, and that's fine as long as everyone's on the same page about it, because I don't want to forget. When you park your car at a parking lot and the guy goes, oh, you see that scratch? And I go, yeah, don't add any more scratches. That's kind of that conversation that first, so does that make sense?
So would you recommend taking a video walkthrough or
Yeah, walk through
pictures?
pictures. And I would say, and as a landlord, we have a thing called a move-in, move out form, where the land, usually you do a walkthrough and there's like a form where the tenant signs off on the condition of the unit so that when the tenant moves out, it's clear. And also telling them, hey, you're allowed to do this, you're allowed to do that. For example, let's say we deliver an apartment with white walls or beige walls, and then the tenant puts black walls and, or wallpaper. And we're like, that that's fine, but before you leave, you have to put the walls back to white or beige because cost me money to cover that up or change it or take it off, right? So those things, or let's say, like I said, there's a scratch on the floor, there's a certain thing that you want to make sure that everyone knows that it was like that. Or let's say the oven was perfectly working fine when you moved in, and then you did something to mess it up. It should be like that on the way out, right? Like whatever it is that it was when you got it is on the way out. So you just want to make sure everyone's on the same page. And what happens is that a lot of time goes by between when you start and when you leave, and it's important to document these things before and say, look, I need this fixed, right? Or when are you going to fix this? As to the landlord, or how does it work? Those are questions you want to know and ask before you move in or when you move in, and document that. Cool. Any more questions on that? Because I have more there.
That's really valuable. I think that I didn't do that. I know I do that when I move out for a security deposit, but it's so important to do it at the beginning as well.
How much easier would it have been if you had done
I know.
it, right?
What else
And
do you got?
This move-in checklist. And then I think, I'm going to say this again. We've said this before, but making sure you have renter's insurance is really important. Someone just happened that I know had a leak, and it was really no fault of the landlord, but it was like a torrential rainstorm, and they live on the third floor, and the rain came into the apartment because of like a backup of a drain, and then it ruined their stuff, and they and it was like thousands of dollars worth of damage, thousands, and the person's like, what do I do? The thing, and I'm like, do you have renter's insurance? I said no. So the guy had literally $10,000 worth of damage, right, to his things, right? And renter's insurance, I said, renter's insurance costs like $200 a year
Mm-hmm.
to cover your stuff, like $200 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, get renter's insurance. It's, your rent is like $2,000 a month. Get renter's insurance, $200. And it's like the best advice I give you, because the landlord's insurance doesn't cover you for your stuff. It may be the landlord's fault. It may not be the landlord's fault. It may be someone else's fault, but your stuff is not covered by the landlord. So the first thing I would do is get renter's insurance. Okay, cool. I'm gonna move on.
Yeah, great.
Another thing that I thought about when I moved into my place is like, how is the security? Like, how is it at night? What am I going to do about that? What should I get an alarm system? Should I get cameras? Whatever. These days it's so easy to buy one of those camera systems that you could look at your app. Mm-hmm. So I recommend that, something like that. My daughter, when she moved into her off-campus housing in college, she put that up. These days, it's so easy to do, to think about, okay, how am I going to secure my home? Or how is the building secure? Or, what happens? So those things, like, now that you're going to live there, you're like, okay, where do I put my packages? Where do I get this? How do I get in? How do I let people in? Those kind of questions. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Common sense. But another thing, I think that if you're living in an apartment building or in a neighborhood, and I'd like to ask you if you did this, you're moving into the neighborhood and you're like, you're living with these people. You're living next to these people. You're living around them. Like, did you say hello to your neighbors? Did you say, hey, I'm here. I'm new to the neighborhood. I just wanted you to know I moved in. Here's my family. Here's my thing. Here's my situation. I just, if you need anything, here's my phone number. Or please give me a knock or anything, whatever. And it's just nice to establish that you're in the community, that you're part of the community, that you're there, because we're all in the world together, and we're sharing this planet. And I think that it's an important to make space for each other. Now, there are people that don't want to see other people, mm-hmm. or don't want to be, which is totally fine. But knowing that, there's someone new in the neighborhood or the building or the area that you may come across or whatever, it's good to know, so that, they know, for security, for help, for anything that is needed. For example, we've seen these stories on television that, one day a moving truck pulls up at someone's house, and you're like, those people, it doesn't look like those people. Who are they? Well, it turns out they're being robbed. Mm-hmm. Right? So it would be nice if a neighbor knew that you live there and would just ask a question. Oh, are they moving? They just moved in. Where do they go? No, those movers aren't people moving, Mm-hmm. So those questions. You follow me?
Yeah, those are really great. I think that's a good list. I think, so to summarize what you just said, you basically said, document the space before you move in, before you move all your stuff. Definitely get renter's insurance, because it can come in handy, and you've seen it when people really needed it. Take note of the security of your surroundings, and be nice and friendly, right? I think those are great points when you want to move in, when you're moving into a new space, renting an apartment or house. So thank you so much, Albert. That was great.
You're welcome.
For more episodes, please subscribe to Ask the Landlord on your favorite podcast platform. We'd appreciate it if you left a review on Apple Podcasts. If you'd like to watch the show, check out our Ask the Landlord YouTube channel. If you have a question for Albert, feel free to contact him on Instagram at @AskTheLandlord and check out his TikTok at @AskTheLandlord. Bridging the gap between landlords and tenants, this has been Ask the Landlord. Thanks for listening.